Now,
There we go.
All righty, so we're gonna get ready to get started. We have a few minutes, like 30 seconds probably before we hit 6:30. So we're gonna let people kind of come in. And we're doing an interesting topic tonight. And I've actually had emails from people asking me if this is gonna be on playback. All of our stuff is on playback on our YouTube.
hold on 1 second.
Okay, we're just getting reconnected.
Okay, gotcha.
James's went out, so I'll use my mic.
Okay.
Cord,
So
I figured that's what it
so yeah, our technical difficulty named James.
so
I can't hear you, Melissa. Can you hear me?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I hear you.
Alrighty. So I'm just waiting for James's computer to reconnect here. So we're going to be discussing AI and its impact on the art and photography world. But before we start all that, I'm going to just make sure that we have a few FinerWorks announcements going on. Let me get this ready really quick and add a stream there. And we have a sale going on that ends Thursday. It's on our archival matte paper and satin luster paper, and you get 25% off. So during, let me see, is it not quite coming up yet?
No, it's like your.
Oh, I think that's Caldrick. Can you see my screen? Okay.
I can see it.
Okay, great. I think it's your computer coming up.
Okay.
Weird. Yeah, we have the archival matte paper and satin luster paper sale going on, and you have the promo code of ARCSAT when you check out. These are great times to try our different papers, especially when you want to go large. Or if you haven't had, maybe you've lost your satin luster paper sample from your sample kit, you can always do a smaller print and try it out. But good time to go large.
Good time to go large, so you can kind of
see
check
how
it
well
out,
that
see how well that
paper
quality
is.
of the paper is.
So
So
try that out before Thursday. James, are there any other FinerWorks announcements that you want to have out there?
No, not really. I think it was just that special.
Sale going on.
Yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a slower period for us, so we try not to do kind of anything really crazy because a lot of our employees are taking off.
This is our
going on
slow
vacation.
kind of our
Yeah, so
time.
just industry wide, in the art world, a lot of artists kind of see this as kind of their slow point as well, I think. And so this is kind of like our kind of catch our breath, get ready to get nice and rested for the second half of the year, which is typically, especially the third and fourth quarter, which is toward the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter becomes really kind of the busiest time of year. So we have the only real announcement I have right now is we're spending a lot of time working on modernizing our IT infrastructure for those that are interested. This means updated web technologies to make it easier for our customers to order what they want from us, allow us to be able to add more options for those that want them, but also simplify the overall user experience, the interface that people use. Right now we use Post, our print online setup tools, and an acronym. And it's really come a long way over the years and become a very effective tool for artists to be able to select the items that they want. But it's not as responsive as we would like. What I mean by that is it tends to not run as fast and as kind of snappy.
So there's no AI.
So there's no
behind it,
AI
is what you're saying.
There's no AI behind it yet. Okay. Now there very well could be. So we're actually working on bringing in a brand new development team. Postal Bee is kind of a little bit further on the back burner because generally it works well for most people, but there are some things that we do want to improve before that. So web technologies have come so far over the past 20 years compared to when we first started FinerWorks and now, but we have not really kept up with some of the web technologies out there, which is hard to imagine for some people because we get a lot of people telling us, "Well, I like y'all's website because it's
Does X, Y, and Z.
yeah, it does X, Y, and Z, and this photo lab that I used to use doesn't, they don't, or they don't have, they have to outsource their web developer to handle all that. And so we're a little bit of a step ahead in some respects, and not compared to all of them, but compared to many.
Will that help integration later on?
Because
there's so many moving parts.
There's going to be a strong emphasis with this new group of employees that we're bringing in to be focused on long term for integration, better integration with Shopify, Squarespace. We're going to add Wix to the platform, WooCommerce, big commerce as well, and I'm trying to think who else did I miss any. I think those are the big five.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course Etsy. Not sure if we're going to try with Amazon. Amazon, handmade just doesn't have the traction that some of these other platforms do. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
So that's really all I have. And so, but as far as anything new and innovative coming from FinerWorks, product wise, not yet. We do have some things on the draw, or no, I shouldn't even say on the drawing board, in the works, but nothing to really worth mentioning just yet. So.
Well, and we wanted to do this topic. James has wrote a couple of blogs on AI, and there's so much talk about it in the art world right now. So tonight we're gonna talk a little bit, kind of like a roundtable discussion going on here. So we're gonna we have our resident artist, Caldrick, who's here, does his art in San Antonio, and I mean, you're branching out. We see you on so many different things. Hopefully, you don't leave us.
Yeah. It's just doing different things. FinerWorks is a great place to work because you have, canvas, you're seeing canvas, you're seeing, as an artist, you're seeing how images are printed on different papers. I know Melissa was showing me 10 different papers to print on, with different textures. So it's cool to see the metal works, and everything, the framing. So, it's really, I want to get into some of those other departments and see what's going on, but it's good as an artist to be in there.
Yeah, it's nice that there are a lot of artists on staff that actually are putting together your orders. So
so I think with artists, they understand what many of people on our staff are artists, and they understand the concerns and the worries and sometimes the stress associated with placing a big order for a bunch of prints that you're hoping to sell. And that's one of the reasons why people know us for our quality. Not to brag about ourselves, but that is one of the key attributes that people tell us with FinerWorks is they love the quality, they love the care, the attention to detail, especially with some of the newer technologies that we've adopted this year, which allows for greater precision and both accuracy in the prints, everything from the size of the print to the color gamut, and being able to have artists kind of oversee this helps a lot. Now we do a lot of prints, so obviously things are going to get kind of we're not going to be able to inspect every print with a magnifying glass, but we do definitely try it. And I know Caldrick will he'll see something, a canvas print that he might be working on, and say, and does this look quite right? And he'll go
customer service.
Definitely.
He'll let one of the managers know and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then, or he'll let customer service know if he's, we trust Cal. A lot of times, we just say, just if don't, go, customer service, and then let them contact the customer. But we can't catch all those.
Yeah, we can't catch it all.
We try, but Caldrick has a good eye for this.
We have a couple different, artists in there, and I think having like a good eye for how things should look is, you catch a lot of things. Like someone else, Sandra, who works there, she caught something that passed me, so it's always like good to have different artists because they're checking things and, kind of picking it up right after you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we all try different things here. I me and Caldrick were working together on his art because this is the first time he's kind of gone to doing prints and how to capture his art. We've used different techniques, and Caldrick will say I'm more critical on on my stuff of catching stuff, but we all try to pride ourselves in that. So we have Caldrick that we tap a lot now for artist opinions. So we have him on our roundtable tonight, and we have a thing in San Antonio called First Friday, which is traditionally our art walk, one of the bigger art walks here in San Antonio, and a lot of studios in our art district, which is Southtown, and it's centered in Blue Star Art Complex. So I kind of went through and asked a few artists there so that, I want y'all to hear opinions and have that. There's some artists that, that see the AI works as something to be, worried about.
Mhm.
We see some other artists that are embracing this as like a new tool.
Mhm.
So it's going to, I want you to hear those, and like everyone's feelings on any new technology
Yeah.
is always
Mhm.
valid. But the most
Yeah.
thing I've learned is that we all just don't have quite all the information there, and technology changes so fast that once you've learned something,
The
it almost seems obsolete.
Yeah. So part of the fear of AI is driven by just a lack of knowledge as to how it's configured. But there are grounds for some of these fears as well because people understand the potential, especially when it comes to how it affects art, the people, people's livelihood,
It's yes.
but AI in general, and let me start this off by saying I am sick of hearing about AI.
Man, it's
But
not going anywhere.
I know it's
yeah,
gonna be
but it
it's
is
gonna be like social media.
yeah,
It's gonna be
it's so I'm embracing the concept not as necessarily as a tool or anything like that, but
It's here.
I'm embracing. No, I'm accepting it. Okay.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, it's here.
that's I think what artists need to do. That they need to accept it and say, okay, well, how can we thrive?
And
How can we mitigate the threat if you feel like it's a threat? How do I mitigate it as a threat? How do I prevent it becoming a threat? And I don't think it's going to be as threatening to artists as
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so either. I've heard both sides of, artists who are totally against AI and then artists who's for it. Me, I happen to be on the in between. I can see how the artists are against it because it's almost like, you go in and artists work 20, 30 hours on a piece and you go into AI and press a button and then it creates the same thing. So artists are like, are they trying to delete us from, being creators? Is this machine going to replace us? Which a lot of technology is doing with human workers, right? So I see how they fear that. But then on the other side, it's like, well, it's a tool as well. So I remember in Illustrator, there was a tool that a lot of artists use called image trace, and they'll go into Illustrator, press the button. It'll break down the values from darkest to lightest in the easy way for our artists to paint if they don't have the technical skills of shading or blending. And when I see artists do this, I'm like, okay, they're kind of young. They don't really know how to do the technical skills. And that kind of helps them create, which is a tool in that aspect. But it's like any tool, like when photography first came out, I think like a lot of artists was afraid because a lot of artists were taking like actually painting what they were seeing, and then the camera came out like, hey, should we even be doing this? Like the camera is doing exactly what we're doing, and it's like, well, are they replacing us? But as a painter, like there's people bring photos to me that a camera took and say, hey, can you paint this? Because I think they appreciate the time that artists put into it, and the skill that artists put into it. So it's more about that to people, I think. I feel like AI is more like automatic, or robotic in a way, soulless in a way, right?
Yeah.
But
and that's very true. Is that's one thing that differentiates it is that I feel at least that a traditional artist they they put their heart and their soul in their painting, and I don't know if it's true. It's kind of metaphysical, I guess, but it almost is like when you see an original work of art, you can almost feel and you can sense that
right, yeah, you can.
put into it, and like nothing else. You can't even see that in a print, and in a high quality print, at least not to that extent. And I think that might be, that to me that is one of the positive things, or one of the things that keep or that original art a viable option for artists, where they shouldn't feel threatened, because I think there is that, like what you said, is that there's that sense of soul and
yeah. But I know you talk about like the artists, when you go see a painting and you see these thick blobs of paint on there, you're like, oh man, a hand did that. But I actually seen an AI that was replicating throwing paint onto a canvas to give it that thick texture too. And I'm like, well, that's a step up. I haven't seen that before. So it's like a steady advancing to replicate exactly what artists are doing. But then there's soul missing as well when you see it, even if they threw, the paint on there, like you said.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that, obviously outside the fact that people are worried that AI is going to result in the apocalypse, but I guess in that case, artists should. Yeah. One of the things that there is some controversy in is the surrounding of digitally created artwork created by AI and its originality. Now, as a whole, yes, could be considered original, okay, but the reference material utilized by it is where the problem lies.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know that a lot of artists are concerned about that, or have expressed concern about that.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest problem that I heard, was that AI was coming in and taking from a database that pulled from all of the images that everyone put online, be it photographer, painters, and they don't ask for permission. They just take it, put it into the database with billions of images and create from that. Which in a way, I mean, with art, it's really hard in legal issues to place anything on art, because it's like, well, how much do you have to change it before it becomes your own, right? Like 30%, 50%. Okay, now it's different. But I can feel how artists are like, hey, they're taking this image, using it. But I mean, even as an artist, I was thinking about using AI to make portraits, because I'm a portrait painter, you guys know, of like taking, using the AI program and telling it to take different facial features from different people and making a whole new face to where no one in the world looks like this. You know what I mean? So I've been considering using it as a tool as well, to make something interesting, which I don't think is wrong. It's like, it's different, Yeah, and that's you using it as a tool.
Yeah, I think that's a valid reason to use AI technologies, to be able to create a composite of something to inspire you. Because let's say if you want something really unique, that's the perfect place to do it, because it's probably you're probably not going to see something, especially if it's taking components of images, from multiple images, and kind of coming up with something. And I think that's a good valid reason. But I think one of the problems, though, that some people see is when it starts, you know, there's always going to be a chance that it crafts an image or renders an image that's going to be just like something that is original. And you've already seen this with like Chat GPT, where people are using that for a term paper, where it's basically it's more of a coincidence than anything, I believe, where it's capturing or it's generating text that is almost verbatim to something else that's been written. And
how far distance is it?
Yeah, and so statistically that's possible, especially if it's, maybe it might be just a paragraph, but it is possible. And so, why couldn't it be possible, with
visuals as well?
Yeah, because
I heard of this artist that he said that someone went and typed in, "Can you make a paint?" It was somewhat of a popular artist. Can you? They typed into the AI program, "Can you make a new painting from these 10 paintings from this artist and make a new painting with it?" And it created a new painting from those 10 paintings. And it's like, well, that's exactly his style, but a whole new piece that he never created. So I can see how that artist is like, hey, I'm being ripped off here. They can make 50 more paintings, in my exact style. It's just tough. It's tough for artists.
Yeah. Are you losing that connection?
No. So what you were just saying, this is out of MIT Technology Review that Pete is from this.
Why can't I see your screen?
I'm not too sure what happened to your connection when you started back up. But Calvin, you see the screen, correct?
I see both of you guys, yeah.
But do you see my shared screen?
I don't see a shared screen, no.
You don't see a shared screen, okay. Let me see if I shared it or not. Let me. Oh no, I haven't shared it yet. Let me hit that. I think I have. What's gonna make me do Chrome tab? Okay. Let's see if I can find it. That one. Okay. Do you see that now?
Yes. Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So this artist right here, let me see if I can get this off so you can see more of the screen. What MIT here was saying, and his name, he's a Polish artist named Greg, I guess that would be Rudowski or Rudowski. His name is right down here. Greg.
Oh.
You should be able to pull out some of those names.
I don't even see the name.
Right.
You speak German, James?
Rudowski.
It's Polish. Yeah, it's Polish.
I actually knew.
I was going to say he should be able to see it because he's near the Polish community.
No, I actually knew a guy named with that last name.
Oh, okay. Well, this is his art, and I mean, he's not by all terms. He's not like he's saying in this article. He's not like he's Dolly. It's not like he's one of the masters, but a lot of the AI have said, his thing has been make it in the style of his name, and it's been a prompt 93,000 times.
Jeez.
So I started laughing. I said, if you want to find out how famous you are as an artist, throw that in as a prompt and see if
see if it's accurate. See how accurate it is.
You ain't making enough of a blip yet.
No.
So he's a traditional painter.
Yeah, he does fantasy art. So
he is getting a lot of people
who know his work
that are trying to emulate that with AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, you know what? That's tough. That's tough as an artist because it's like, well, man, this is a whole style that you took maybe decades to create, and then people come in and make that exact same style by pressing a button or two, right? And it's like, and it kind of hurts as an artist. You're like, why did I put in all this work?
Yeah, it's kind of flattering at the same time, but it's also disconcerting. Yeah.
Disheartening.
Well,
Yeah.
I would be disconcerted because let's say I'm I don't know what his artwork if he if he sells or maybe if it's if let's say I'm a book cover illustrator, okay, and I make decent money designing book covers, fantasy art, sci-fi, what have you, and then I got a good following of people that like my artwork, and then they start using AI tools to generate artwork like mine. Well, I'm a publishing company and I see that I can get the same style artwork cheaper. I don't have to pay the artist as much money.
Right.
Well,
I mean, is that? I mean, I don't know.
It kind of devalues your work as the original creator in a
I
way.
don't want to say it does because, okay, think of it with Christie's and all of the auction houses right now that are trying so hard to weed out the fakes. There's a whole industry that has hired artists to replicate and come up with techniques to age a media so that they can pass off.
Yeah, but that's
as
different. This is
original.
more for, I'm talking about like for, published art, like that you're going to publish it you're going to, like, you're a professional illustrator.
Well, think of it in like even in terms of like, okay, Mickey Mouse, right? Disney is one of the most copyrighted, characters out there. All of their stuff is so copyrighted. It's dangerous to even just make a parody of. Yet you'll go to some place and they have the generic Mickey Mouse, like like when you were a kid. Those ain't Reeboks. Those are Reeboks.
No. But when if I have and again, and I have some experience in this field, just because years ago I did some book covers, and let's say I get hired by a publisher to design a series of book covers. Okay, this is the scenario I'm portraying, and I design these book covers. I make a good bundle of cash for this publisher, and the publisher has another series of books. It says, you know what, I want to redesign these, and I want to kind of
emulate.
I want to emulate that as well, but I don't want to pay that much money.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well,
I'm out. I'm out. Some of my livelihood because AI. It's the same concept of robotics. Threatening jobs. The same thing with AI. AI is a sort of virtual robot that's threatened my job as an illustrator.
Right.
This is different than a traditional painter selling their original
like,
artwork.
okay, let's say along those lines too, and because I've worked with Disney and a couple of the publishing, the artist that does the Harry Potter books, for instance, her stuff, those covers are sold also as prints, as art. Now she's made a name for herself, so there is, even in publishing,
but there's nothing. But there's nothing.
This would be more because it is this artist, whereas this is inspired by the art of.
I get all that. The point I'm making is that from
it is possible.
It's a threat to an artist's livelihood, especially like a illustrator or graphic designer under that scenario, because a publisher could go and find a cheaper alternative form of AI, especially if
I see both you guys' sides. So you're making a point. So James, your point is that it's making the artist's work devalued, which I feel that as well as a creator, if my things were ripped off. Melissa, I hear what you're saying, and I'm thinking about, say, Nike as a brand, how they have all of the rip-offs Nikes you can't get an authentic Nike, it's still going to be worth thousands of bucks, or hundreds of bucks, and you try to go bring them an exact replica of fake. It's like, we're not taking this, like they want the original as well. So it's not like it's trying to devalue it, but the brand itself is strong enough to kind of weed that out,
It can command
under that scenario, yes, but under the scenario in the publishing world, the artist is more, in many cases, is more of a side note, except for a small percentage of people that follow that artist.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's not going to having a well-known illustrator designing the book cover is going to have a small impact on sales versus having one that emulates it.
And then I think that gets down to the product itself, right? Like, are we talking about something that's so original as an original painting, or something that's, brand? Are we talking about something that someone's paying $50 an hour to create an illustration book? What are we talking about that's originally being duplicated?
Again, we're talking graphic design, so we're talking mass production. So graphic designers, graphic design is already a very difficult field to master. When I say master, to really entrench yourself in and make a decent living. It's challenging because there's a lot of people doing so. And what I'm saying is, in the commercial world, okay, AI I believe is a big threat when it comes to commercial art.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Sure. I think more with graphic artists, like you have things like the commercial artists that work. There's you have an art director, right? And when you go to, especially like advertising agencies, you have your art director, you have other artists that work under that art director to get out a campaign and come up with a style. Now, are those jobs maybe in jeopardy from something like this? And and I've been asking graphic designers, have they seen a pullback since things like Canva and things came out, making, much like our cell phones, right, made photography easy for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, where I can kind of see some of this, but I'm going to roll that video really quick because we have 3 other artists on here to give it. It's 2 artists and a photographer. So I'm just going to mute myself, and we'll just mute so you don't hear us over the video.
You can't, your screen's not sharing.
And I'm an artist. I guess I've been showing out and about professionally probably since 2016. It's probably my first official solo show. I was in group shows, So yes, I'm pondering and freaking out, as a lot of other artists and people appreciate human creativity. And on one hand, there's a certain kind of existential dread of art just becoming people won't value the amount of time and sacrifice that went into creating all these artworks and pieces that you see. Now it's you can just put a couple of prompt words in and you get something spit out at you in seconds, and it's just going to become I don't know, this oversaturation where people just, it'll become so commodified and worthless, and that's kind of the more extreme end, I think, of what will happen. But then on the other hand, I start to think about how this could actually propel our own humanity and society's senses in terms of appreciating the soul and spirit that is infused in artwork that's created by you.
I'm Anthony Garcia, JoJo Dancer Photography. This is my studio space. Got a blacklight show going on in there right now. What it's going to do is going to make us all try that much harder, get more creative. AI has been with us for years, you know what I mean? We were calling it different things back in the day. In photography, they were in the dark room, dodging and burning and moving things. we've had to work with this kind of manipulation of art for years. You know, we work it and to incorporate AI in all of our. There's levels to everything, you know, and you know, AI could maybe come do something with that. You know, I don't know, but the stuff I've seen so far looks incredibly fake, and some people like that. You know, postcards that don't even. It doesn't even look like what's going on. That's not a photography. That's not photography. That's not a photo. That's, you know, a computer thing, and it's obvious on a lot of them. You know, but right now where it's at, I'm doing all right. I don't know other mediums, but I'm doing cool, you know. But we'll see, you know. And really, I take things like that. I mean, our cell phones do such a great job on video work and photography. It makes me wonder, why did I just drop, you know, $1,000 on that last freaking Nikon? You know, and when you blow it up and you start doing things. That's his too. Yeah. Okay, I'm scared.
Hello, my name is Josh. Painter, graphic artist, musician. I think it probably already has, and I don't think it will completely replace humans, but I think probably the people in the middle of the road of, you know, talent, or you know, if you look at it like a hierarchy of, you know, hardworking people and people who you know, on a talent scale, you know, the ones at the very top will never be replaced, you know, because even a machine can't come up with the same thing that they can. And I think that the people at the very bottom of a hierarchy of you know, those skill sets, and I think, you know, they'll just continue doing what they want. I think it's probably the people in the middle, you know, your average, your above average, and your slightly below average. Those will probably be the ones where I have worked with some files that I've been given. And it's frustrating because, you know, AI doesn't quite know what it's doing, or, you know, I have 8 fingers. You get a lot of gobbledygook
On the nose, the eyes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's you know, I guess.
I think, I mean, all the artists had valid points. I don't disagree with anything they said, but one of the things that I think is this last artist made a point of is you know, these image generation tools, they really, in my opinion, they have the potential to do a good job, but they have a long way to go. I've seen some that where people have been able to prompt them to do some amazing output, but I also see where they struggle. I talking about this earlier is I forgot what it was, why I did. I went to this tool and I entered a prompt, gave a highly detailed description, because one of the things I've noticed is the more detailed description, the better. Highly detailed description of, I said, okay, well, let's have a little girl playing a violin, you know, and posed, you know, kind of looking down, holding the bow of the violin in a very kind of poised manner. And because, and there was a brand new software tool. It was called, what is it called? Dream Suite.
There's Dream.ai.
No, I think it's Dream Suite. But anyway, I think it uses the Dolly API. Just having worked with that, but I'm not positive. But anyway, I tried repeatedly to get it to generate, you know, a painting looking like that, and I could not get it to do it. I mean, it was rendering all these paintings, all these versions, but the
It's not what you had in mind. Right.
no, it's just it was not capable of posing the girl right, so it looked natural. The violin looked like it had morphed into a Salvador Dali painting sometimes.
Right. Melting.
She would be holding her hand like she was holding the bow, but the bow itself was not in her hand.
It was way lower. It's off.
Yeah, everything was off, and it was just and I finally ran out of credits, and so I stopped doing it. But
well, you know what? With that, I feel like it's gonna create a whole new genre of people who are like writers, like your what do they call it? Scripts that you have to put in to create. So I feel like it's like a rough draft.
Yeah. I thought, I said, okay, well, you know, you had mentioned using it as kind of reference material, I think. And I could see, I could see in some of the renditions where the violin looked like a violin, it could be used as a reference material. But yeah, it did seem to struggle with posing.
Oh, see, I've never used any of those, any of the programs, even though I was thinking about using one for portraits. But I mean, it sounds like it's really, tough. You have to be really specific, or it's not together in like creating exactly what someone wants, which it has a long way to go, but I was listening to what the photographer in the video said, which is interesting to hear how different artists are viewing, the AI art takeover quotes. But so the photographer said, we have to become better artists, and I feel like we are gonna have to I think just society kind of rewards originality, right? So the artists who are creating is like, well, you got to step up your game and creating something original that no one else is doing, because I think as artists beginning, we just copy everybody. I was copying Andy Warhol, Basquiat, trying to do exactly what they were doing, and then you find your own style as an artist. So, I think in a way, I think it's gonna be like for maybe artists, beginner artists, original. At the end of the day, I think artists want their own style. Unless you said, if it's like illustrators, if it's something that they just want to make a product and put it on the front of a book, then they won't really care about that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that what's going to happen is, what I'm predicting is that the graphic design field of art, or the graphic design category is going to embrace it more, because there's commercial incentive. Is your screen's not working? Is it?
Yeah.
You're not on the screen.
Not on yours.
I see all three of you guys.
Yeah, he sees it. On here to make sure.
I wonder why. Okay. But the point is, but the traditional art world, I don't think there's going to.
I don't think they're going to embrace it as much as the graphic.
It's not going to be embraced as much because of, again, we're let's say a gallery owner, okay, someone that runs a gallery, they're not going to. They're less likely. The majority of your galleries out there are less likely want to carry AI as art, unless they have a special section devoted to it. But most of them are going to, art is a emotional purchase, okay, and so it's the gallery owner is reliant on that emotional aspect, and this is one of the reasons why I believe that sometimes photographers struggle to get their work in galleries, because there's not always as much, at least not in some cases, there's not that sense of emotion, with photography that you do with an original painting. And so, it's not to say that yeah.
I think another point to what you're saying with the galleries, it's that exclusivity of it as well. You know,
Yeah.
This, from a gallery point of view, from selling in the galleries and stuff, is this case here that we saw, because this is going to come into galleries and contests and awards for artists and photographers. So back in March, the Sony World Photography Award was issued out, and it was a well-known photographer, and he submitted an AI photo just to show that, could that fake people out? Now you're thinking a panel that's going to be giving an award out in photography would be able to spot those differences. And this is the photo that won. That was AI generated. And maybe if you'd just taken a quick look at it, maybe you wouldn't know. But if you zoom in and you look at her fingers, no nails. You'll see here how there's warping on that one. There's these other odd hand placement down here at the bottom. And sometimes, like I said, my daughter's been the one to really help me with this, is that, and I'm wondering if he did any more photographic,
Is it the same? So
I think it's supposed to be the same woman.
I think that probably it was meant to show kind of like an older versus younger.
And
it's a beautiful image.
Yeah, it's a beautiful image, and
But you see those small things that make it like there's something off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always and it's part of that. There's part of our brain that distinguishes realism from something that's not real. It's like if you look at a computer generated like animation, okay.
The pizza.
Yeah, that's a whole other. But like computer generated animated characters, it's very, very difficult in the animation world to make humans look so like they're not
animated,
like animatronics, or mannequins or something like that. There's so much detail that goes on with it. It's because our brain is able to process so much information, and there's so much detail in the human figure, that like a photo of a person, it's how light glistens off the forehead because of the oils on the skin, or the strands of hair in your hair or your beard, and things like that's easy to overlook in an artificial environment. And our brain is able to
fill in those gaps.
So that's why we kind of have this like something's not right here kind of.
I mean, even as like a portrait artist who look at faces all day, like I can tell, like when I seen that photo, it looked beautiful, but when you get close on it, you see these small things that's not right. Like under the neck, there was a highlight that shouldn't have been there, right? Like those small things, like Melissa pointed out, the nails, right? That makes you say, that this isn't right. But I mean, I guess it was a judge competition that it was going through, and they maybe gave it a quick view, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how they.
You're thinking with something along those lines. So for a gallerist, it's going to become, their eye needs to get trained also to see things. Like this is not obviously, it's not, even if it's prints, and you're selling from an original painting, because your idea is that this was an originally made thing, whether it be, a painting, a graphic design, a digital art piece. You need to be trained to have that now. I think, like I said, this is where I was getting with Sotheby's and Christie's, looking for those fake.
Yeah.
So that's going to become things. And there's a legality of all of this too, not only just a livelihood, but what you were mentioning earlier is copyright infringement, because again, the OpenAI sources of these were using databases like, well, there was like, I think my daughter was telling me about an article that came out that say you shared a PDF of your last physical, and you shared it as a link, and it's a basically anybody who has this link can see it, and you use that on your Google Docs. Well, some of these open AIs have access to that, and in some images of stuff like, make me a doctor's form or whatever. Some of these things were coming up with people's information on there, which is interesting because again, now where does your privacy now stop when AI is able to use your sources? Same thing with your children's pictures that you may have on, you say, your Google Drive, and you're sharing those with family, only intended for your family. And
AI picks up those links somehow.
There's also
and it's able to use it from there.
A tool is neutral. It's how the user ends up using it. Can those images now, there's the child porn thing that's coming out on. Is it considered child porn if this is not an actual child?
If it's a made up person, right?
Made up person, because then who are you hurting? But if that picture is made up of bits and pieces from other children, that it's taking from people's.
That part is very scary because it almost it offers an excuse for some really kind of, I guess you could say, just it offers an excuse to those that would otherwise have ill will toward, or victimized children, and it's a way, almost like a way around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A workaround.
Which I could imagine from a legal perspective is going to be interesting how that's
right.
The legal part of everything that's going on is going to be interesting because UK just recently kicked out a lot of AI companies if they could not go ahead and cite their sources of where these images are coming from. So
that's going to be a big thing is citing where these images are coming from. Did you get it from a certain person because they're claiming that it's their work? That's going to be really big.
And the US right now has put that no AI generated art can be copyrighted. So you lose the copyright if you made this work in an AI generator. I'm sure we're going to get to the point where it's like parody law. How many points difference has to be in there before this is considered original work? So there's the whole legal thing. And so the copyright infringement, which is going to be interesting because in August we're looking at having.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about whether or not, because that's not something that's been passed as a law yet. But
and I mean, even for us, like when you upload your image to FinerWorks, we do have that disclaimer that you are saying that image belongs to you to make these print copies. So it's going to be interesting on the legality side of just where AI is going to fall. And maybe really the legal systems might be what kind of protect artists and photographers.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the legal systems aren't uniform across all countries. Even copyright does. Where there's in most civilized nations, there are some intricacies that can be different. And I think that's what you'll have there as well, because art is not bound by geographical
a country. Yeah, it's not bound by a country. So people in Italy can use U.S. sources, but when you go to the legal system, are you going to be using Italy?
Or your art might be safe, from infringement in the U.S., but is it safe from infringement?
Right.
And this will be a good, like I said, next month we'll be diving into this. August, we'll be diving into this in greater detail with an actual copyright attorney.
Yeah. So those
nice.
So
that will be interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you, like I said, Calvin, you brought up about using it like a tool for kind of, creating the model that basically instead of like right now, can you say what your process is that you do for your portraits?
Yeah, so just from start to beginning, usually I'm just going on Pinterest looking for images that I like, something that pops out to me, or Instagram. If I'll scroll through and see a model that I like, I'll reach out to them and see if using their image is cool, and if it's on say Pinterest, then I just grab it because there's no source to where it originated. So I'm pulling those, and then I'm just creating the collage from there, which it's, or sometimes I'll take photos of people that I know that's around me. And it's always interesting for me as a creator, like where I'm getting my sources from, right? Is it people that I know? Is it people that I met online? Is it, who is it? Is a big um, question that I get. So to be able to create something that is no one, I think would cause a lot of interest in, these portraits, right? I'm assuming because I haven't done it yet, so that's what I'm thinking. Will happen.
So that's what, like I said, I've talked to several artists who've said that they've already started using it as, to kind of, like you were saying earlier, generate those possibilities and then use that as almost like a study. This is basically that they can use this to go ahead and shorten that time of a study. So there are ways that AI can come in and actually assist artists in this. Like you're saying, the model,
it's more like if I was painting and I wanted different people, like I'll have to print out 5-6 different reference photos and visually try to put them together where an eye might be way up here and a nose be over here a little bit, depending on how you put it together. But if there's a program that actually pulls, from how many ever selected faces it pulls from to create a new face, and that would be helpful in taking that creative route.
What would you like AI ultimately to do for you as an artist?
I mean, just use it as a tool. If anything, I used to, on Illustrator, I used to make digital portraits, which I don't know if you consider that AI art because it was using Illustrator, but I was going, taking hours on these things to create the portrait. But it was AI assisted or digitally assisted. But I mean, just to use it as a tool, I think.
Yeah.
And similar, what I used to do, and this was, quite a number of years ago, but I used to work with 3D graphic software, and I would, for my illustrations, for the commercial work that I would do, and I would purchase models, 3-dimensional models of people and things, and, elements that I would put into the scene. And then I would utilize those as the basis to digitally paint over them. It's just like you take a photo and create a digital painting.
Right.
Give it that painterly look. And, now, of course, was that digital model, was there any copyright restriction?
Right.
There were certain copyright stipulations that you could use it for this, but not that. And
right. And I think with art, it's really tough to place that,
Yeah, but at the same time, after I, place the scene and lit it the way I want, and then I would go manipulate it with a, digital painting program, what is it at that point? Is it
right? You're going through so many processes to make these references photos yours, right?
Yeah.
Uniquely yours now.
Yeah. So it's kind of a similar situation as you described. So
yeah, I don't know if you guys remember that the app that blew up that was portraits. People were taking their portraits and putting it into some app, and I think it was like Lindsay or something like that. And it was generating like 5-6 different, portraits in different styles. Did you guys hear about that when it blew up?
I can't remember.
Like, and everyone was using it on Facebook and Instagram to create these artistic
avatars and stuff, like, you know. From
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly what they were. But they were very artistic as well. And it's like, you know, I know a lot of artists had something to say about that, because it was like, well, who is this digital artist coming through and doing what we've been wanting to do, you know? And a lot of people were paying to have those done, you know, and it's like, hey, you have artists who can make you some really good stuff.
Now, there's another aspect that I found interesting. There was an article that I think we talked about it just recently. There was an article about new Photoshop plugin. Mm-hmm. Do you have any info on that?
I mean, I started trying it a little bit. You have to go to...
No, what is it called again?
Right now you'd have to go ahead and get out of the Adobe Cloud, get Photoshop Beta. Okay. And I'm trying to remember what it's called, Neural something. If you go to filters and it becomes an option, Neural something.
So it's an AI enhanced Photoshop filter. How's that sound?
What does it do? What does it do?
Well, it's supposed to help you do several different things. There's a thing where you can go ahead and, let's say there's an island, like you took a picture of a lake with an island in the center and these mountains behind. Then you could go ahead and say, I want to take out that island. And it'll take it out, kind of better than the cloning tool would ever do.
Right.
It puts it in there.
But it's using AI prompts from what I understand.
Yeah, you can go put it, and I want to put in a fleet of ships on this thing.
Okay. So it's like the AI programs we're talking about, but now in Photoshop is adopting those things.
Yeah, or you could take let's say you could, you know, you create your canvas as an 8x10, and then you take a small image, crop part of a person, and put that, you know, in a section of that 8x10 canvas, and say, and so you have that cropped square of that person, maybe of the chest up, on the canvas, and then you have all this white space around him or her, and you can tell it, say, hey, add subject matter, like put him in put this, you know, person
in the mountains behind them, or in a volcano,
or in a crowded room, even.
Right. Oh, see, now that's interesting.
Now,
it
still was having, I think, a little trouble with.
The concept was impressive. The results were, you know.
It's kind of still developing, but I mean, to be able to, create something, which I think every artist is trying to. They have images in their head that they want to create, but they can't visualize it. So that would be perfect to really play around and see what you can, if you can get, how close you can get to what you want to see.
Yeah, I haven't tried it out myself, but it looks like a lot of fun. Like something like this is
this is it.
Yeah. This example that we have right here, you know, where it's adding elements. Really, now I could see this again in the illustration and graphic design world. This would be a very valuable tool, because
it's a good tool.
Time it would save, and you know, I do think though that I don't know, you know, in graphic design, like composition is important, because it directs the eyes. You know, placing an image on a web page, for instance, okay, like a product, you know, how you angle that product in relation to a description, you know, those are things that are important, or if there's the font size, the font colors, how well is AI at this point able to even accomplish?
Like, how are they good at using the message that you're trying to portray with that certain product? Like, are they going to use the right font for, you know, they use Papyrus for a Coca-Cola ad, you know, like, is it throwing in fonts that's not needed, or different, you know, imagery?
And I don't know yet. I think it's too soon to tell, and it may be too soon for the technology itself. Is how well is it able to, you know, like you said, add fonts that work within the design scheme of the.
Oh, I was looking at that one that was on the screen, the dog one, and the bubbles
Yeah.
kind of looked off. Like it's little things that are off about it.
Yeah, the
But
line too, as it kind of goes to the vanishing point, it looks
right,
and then the only thing I see that did pretty decent job was the puddle with the reflection of the dog
right,
down by the
right.
I don't know. I'm trying to determine whether or not that truck in the background.
looks kind of wonky.
Now,
too.
one of the things I did notice about this tool is it likes to blur
What it can.
components
Yes.
that it can, and I think it does
Right.
that to help
It's
the
self-accepted,
skies.
yeah.
Right. The mistakes, the little bit of mistakes that it has, it tries to cover that.
So, like the people in the crowded room, like that scenario that I described, in all likelihood, it'll focus in on that person that you imported into your Photoshop,
Right.
your
And
Photoshop.
blur out everyone else.
Blur everyone out, almost like
Right.
We're like you would with a camera, where
Right.
Your point of focus is very narrow, narrowed down to that particular individual, and everything outside of that
Mm-hmm.
focal point is.
And I think it's done a
blurred
pretty
out.
good job, like here, where it's kind of making the
I'm trying to think,
where
what
you're
is it
using the
doing?
remove tool, like you take out the
to
surface
remove
board,
the surface.
and you have the extension of
Yeah,
now that's done okay. It
I
even does it one up. Like let's say this is like a 1:1 aspect ratio, and you want to put this into a 16:9 ratio. It now will create the extended image.
I see. It'll add the pixels that's needed for that shape.
Yeah. So there's some cool things that it was able to do that I was just like, okay, that's pretty cool. Just different little elements that it had working inside of it that I was just like, well, that's interesting, and it's going to be neat to see how, again, it's the beta right now.
Yeah, and I can see it, being useful again for graphic design in situations where the work doesn't have to be as adhered to as strict as standards. You could say maybe in a quick blog post or I don't know.
What will this do, you think, to industries like say Shutterstock?
Stock photography. That's a good point.
Now, Shutterstock is actually one of the contributors to a lot of OpenAI sources.
Shutterstock. So here's what I'm seeing. Okay, now I don't have any
fortune telling globe.
Yeah, this is just what I'm theorizing. I'm
look into your crystal ball. Tell us.
Is these Shutterstock companies or these stock photo companies? They are desperately trying to get ahead of this. Okay, your Dreamscape, your Shutterstock. I think they're going to invest a lot into AI, tools for image generation with. And one of the things that they will have to their advantage is they will have these huge libraries of images that they can work off of. And I think, and one of the things that people have to understand is the way the AI technology works is these are closed ecosystems. Like you have different AI systems out there. You have Bard, which is Google's. You have ChatGPT, which is Microsoft. Yeah, kind of, sort of. I guess I'm not sure quite what the relationship is, but they are connected as to Microsoft. You have some others. Amazon AWS is working on one as well, and so you have all these, and the technology is a little bit different, but the concept is roughly the same. There is even the you can build your own AI ecosystem with some technical knowledge and programming skills. You can build your own as well, and a lot of companies are doing that, especially when you talk about chat and knowledge bases and things like that, where you go to your AT&T mobile website, and you might you think you're talking to customer service, but you're actually talking to a bot that's using its knowledge base that it's building on, and it's trying to seem more like a human. And so what it's doing is it's these stock photo companies are utilizing their databases of images to be able to create something
as they should. I mean, you spent years building a database of images. Like, of course, you're gonna want to get ahead of this. And
I think what they're doing is they're trying to get ahead of this. Now, the question I would have if I were a photographer contributing to this, or posting my images. Let's say I'm, a photographer that I have my work listed on Shutterstock.
Right. It's in the database.
It's in the database. Database. Okay. Is there anything in it for me?
Right. Do I get royalties once it's used 100 times?
Trying to get to now. Currently, that's a discussion going on right now.
Yeah. So it's like, so am I left out in the cold, even though
they're using it? Yeah. Over and over and over. I think that's a good, that's for artists. That's a really good question, because it's like, if you have an artist who take good photos of things that it's going to be used over and over, it's like, hey, man, am I getting anything besides the initial payment that
one of those pixels in that image belongs to me.
Where's my penny royalty
of a cent? Percentage-wise royalty, but it is. It becomes. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing. Based upon that. Okay, now there might be stipulations in there, but attorneys love class action lawsuits, and this may sound, is this leading towards some sort of class action lawsuit? Because if I were a Shutterstock, I'd want to make sure I have all my T's
ducks in a row.
Crossed.
Right.
Because, yeah, because it's.
Well, question two: I know when artists contribute to the database, doesn't Shutterstock pay them like something for it?
Well, only if depend upon the stock image company, but typically if and there's different agreements that they may have, but if generally if my artwork is used, I get a percentage as a royalty.
Okay, well then, does that apply to AI art as well?
It's not a download necessarily.
Yeah, not the full.
Right.
Yeah, or is it or
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Well, how much of that image is actually used? That's why the UK's thing was so interesting, and I would have liked to see it. Like, here's the image. I want to see all the images that it took to create that one image.
Now here's another thing, and now again that potentially happened. Okay, so image generation, AI generated images is going to just get better. Okay, that's just a fact. Technology always improves. Okay, at some point, okay, could a company like Shutterstock be shooting themselves in the foot, because no longer am I going to search images. I'm going to just describe what I want, and it's going to give me some images, okay, or it's going to generate images. And then the photographers that are are contributing to that, to Shutterstock or whatever.
They don't get their images used at all now.
Yeah, and so it's like, and already, 20 years ago was a great time for photographers to get their work on a stock photo site, because many of them were making some decent extra gas money, or maybe they weren't necessarily getting rich from it, but they were making some nice royalty checks on it. Now it's down to photographers are generally not making that much money in stock photography. They always hear great ways for photographers to make money in stock photography. Yeah, and which 10, 20 years ago that was the case.
Yeah, it's like now, how many photos of oranges do you need for a database? Or of cars?
The point is, already stock photographers are making very little.
Yeah.
And does that mean they're going to even make less?
Yeah.
So at some point, it's like, okay, why even bother to go to the trouble of posting my photography to a stock photo company? Because it's going to just generate. Everyone's using the AI generated images anyway. So,
well, and when we were watching those videos, there was something the last artist said, like what he was saying. I think AI is gonna. It might, if you're like that guy that 93,000 times people are putting in his name to get this fantasy art AI generated. Is it going to hurt those people who are now the emerging artists? Do you see this? Because what is it going to do to art education? Are people not going to have a value for art education anymore? Because, I can just go to, now think about people being born today who in 15 years would have been those upcoming artists that you see in high schools. And so is it going to be like photography darkroom stuff where some people don't have those techniques to even go into a dark room and do dodging and burning, and yet I don't know how to mix paint and
I think it's gonna be a new breed of artists, right? Because they're gonna I mean, just like me when I was in graphic design, they're like, "Oh man, y'all lucky y'all have computers. We used to have to manually hand cut things and put it together." And I think in the next couple of years, they were talking about technology or not even technology, like primitive uses of these things that we're taking for granted. The technology, or I was. So I think 10, 20 years from now, the art students coming up are going to have tools that makes life easier, but their creativity is still going to have to be on a certain level. I think
there's a certain commonality, and it's almost generational, where the previous generation always looks down upon those or the work of those using the generation after.
You guys have it easy, right?
And you saw that with photography. You saw film photographers, digital photography. It's it's not real photography,
right?
And, 10 years later, everyone's gone to digital, and except for a handful of purists, and then you're seeing, and you saw the same thing with digital manipulation of photos. That's not a real art form. A real art form is working with the in a dark room and all the dot burning and stuff like that. And then people started utilizing programs like Photoshop, and now it's like people using Photoshop. We look at this software program that this software program we just looked, and many of those are going to be thinking the same thing. But then 10 years from now, there's going to be another generation of artists and photographers where this is just the norm. And I think ultimately what you're going to have is you're going to have the upcoming generation that has they'll just see these as new tools that they won't be discouraged by it. Now it will change the landscape of when it comes to the market to some extent or another. How much or how little remains to be seen, but there's still, human nature for at least for creatives is to create, and there's nothing that's, if you're a creative type, you're going to look for an outlet to create, whether it's on it. And many artists, when they start off, most
start off with your 8-color crayon box.
They start because they find pleasure in creation and creating something, and it's only later that they become corrupted once they learn that they can make money off of it.
Right. That's where the corruption comes in. Now I think that I mean, what, 20, 30 years from now, maybe what they're using is holograms, right? To express their creativity. Yeah. So it's like, I think it's gonna ever evolve.
It is. It's gonna open up new avenues of creativity, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing that. I do hope that there is not I don't think there's going to be this huge backlash against it to the extent that
it never goes forward.
I think there will be some legal issues that rise up, and it's going to be interesting to see how those pan out. But
I know from artist standpoint, the artists that I know, it's split down the middle. Half hate it, the other half wouldn't mind using it, or it's seeing the potential of it. It's split.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up. The feedback that I've gotten and I've seen is that you have a greater percentage, or you have a good percentage that is resistant to it. You have a good percentage that is apathetic to it, and then you only have a small percentage
who's all for it.
No, that is, that is very, gung ho.
Right.
Very, very enthusiastic about it.
Right.
And it's interesting because I brought this scenario up, and I wrote, and anyone can go to our blog. They go to support.finerworks.com, and I think it's on the front page where we have some articles that I wrote about AI. And an interesting comment that I received was someone that was an AI artist. I believe they were a customer of ours. They had indicated, and they were somewhat seemed like they were somewhat upset or almost offended, I guess.
We brought it up.
And
that what?
Well, they thought that I was too negative.
About the AI. Okay.
Yeah, and the article was not necessarily meant to be negative. It was to show. Actually, it was meant to some extent it was, but the entire scope of 3 articles went from negative to neutral to positive, and that was my intent with that. But my goal was to show, present some of the negativity or the sense of negativity that artists have expressed. But I also later on I wanted to show, okay, well, here are some positive things,
right?
And so,
well, you probably had those gun ho people who's gun ho about AI stop at the first article because they're like, nah, I'm not going to finish reading. But then didn't make it to the end.
Yeah, so and that's understandable, but I did want to start with something, I guess, a little bit more negative now that I think about it. But I want to also present, here are some of the positive things about it. So again, but ultimately, the responses to that article was you had a lot of people saying, "Yeah, I agree. This is a bad thing."
Mhm.
You know that they were coming, that they read it that way.
Right.
And you had a very small percentage saying, "Hey, it's not a bad thing. Why are you making it
Mhm.
out to be a bad thing?"
Yeah.
And
Right.
On both sides.
but most people seemed like, interesting,
Yeah.
almost kind
Right.
of that neutral. And I think that's what most of us fall
I
under.
think most are neutral right now. For me as an artist, I'm leaning towards liking it and using it as a tool, as I told you guys. And then I'm leaning towards, well, how is this going to affect artists as well? We talked about some of the things, how, is it going to affect artists, take money out of their pocket, as illustrator, graphic designers. So I'm on the fence about it as well. But I mean, I think people who's gonna adapt to it and use it is that's the future. It's just gonna happen like these tools that advance. Uh,
And I mean, you never know with art, what it could do is later on, kind of like antiquing, right? In a gallery, here we have a collection of art that was, produced with oil paints and acrylics that are, kind of the way we were talking about, with caveman art, it's
right, right,
but there's a value because we saw that, not only is the artistic, composition of something, but what it took to create it. And
right.
when you start like realizing those things, that also adds value to it. To
Yeah.
put down the road, if you're saying like, we have a new generation of artists that comes up where they are like we were talking photographers that don't know how to use a dark room at all. Those techniques come out to be a little more. I think there are right now around the country, there's gallery shows of photography, and the thing to be in it is you had to create the piece in a dark room, and
Mhm.
it's because they want to see those skills. There's the solarization technique of film, like where you really quick let in light into the negative, and it's going to make this almost I want to say like a silver looking kind of thing to your black and white film. So like a silver plate. And but to do that by hand, I mean, it's a hard thing to do.
It's a very labor intensive process.
Exactly.
And
And
but
it's
there's
appreciated in
it
this
is.
niche,
Yeah.
market.
Right.
And that's one of the areas where you just ever since digital design, digital computerized graphics came to be, is there's always been those that appreciate the original format.
Mhm.
And how original is it? Because the technology has changed. That when we're talking about photography, the technology in a dark room, uh, 30 years ago
Mhm.
was more advanced than the technology 80 years ago.
Mhm.
So technology's always moved the bar.
Yeah.
And as technology has moved, so has the bar moved. The same thing with art. Okay. Now, how many artists, okay, believe that a painting the paints need to be actually handmade, mixed with
No, not at all.
We're talking about that. You didn't make your own pigments,
Yeah.
Like those
But-
old artists had come back from the grave. Oh, you young
Yeah,
artists have
Oh no,
But-
I'm not doing that at all.
at some point there was this
yeah.
transition between, well, that's not real paint,
Yeah.
Right, right.
like acrylic.
Yeah.
When acrylic paint was first invented, and we all know acrylic is a plastic.
Uh-huh.
Okay. When acrylic was first, how many galleries refused to carry
Mhm.
paintings
Acrylic paintings.
that were made out of
And I mean,
acrylic?
even
So-
stylized. I mean, pop art took forever to get a place
So-
in
Right.
art
Really
recognition.
going back to the talking about AI. AI is just another technology, another advancement, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
It's another
That
media.
yeah,
It's another media.
it
added.
can become
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at 8 o'clock, guys. Thank you, Caldrick, for taking your time after work to do
So
more work.
did we solve?
Yeah, for sure.
Did we solve the whole AI?
I hope
problem?
We have not solved the AI problem at all.
this
Okay,
was
I
it.
think
You know,
this. So anyone who's concerned, watch our YouTube channel, subscribe, and
yeah. I
make
think
sure you
this
subscribe.
is just going to be on like every news thing to just source and
There
everything.
was like,
Okay, we found the solution.
see what FinerWorks says.
Exactly.
If you guys were on the fence before, we have your solution.
All right. Well, thanks, Caldrick, for, like I said, popping on. We appreciate it. And
Yeah, for sure.
like I said, if you get a chance, go to Caldrick's Geo Gallery site on there. So, you know, check out his art.
If you want to meet him in person, come to FinerWorks.
Come to
and-
That's right. You guys come stop by. I tell you all the work's going on here.
You watch him stretch that canvas out and everything. And the same thing, if you are right now in June going down and you're visiting San Antonio, you live in San Antonio, go to the Blue Star Art Complex. There's so many. I want to say this month had the best shows that they've had at Blue Star, just collectively all together. So go check out the upstairs gallery. You'll see many of those artists that we did for the interviews here. I want to thank them all too, Josh, Kat, Anthony, for taking the time, you know, during that busy time, just to kind of give their thoughts on it. And I'm hoping, like I said, this is a live stream that people refer back to, just to kind of see where you feel at this. I mean, ultimately, like I said, it's a new media. It's coming out. It's gonna be here, just like social media.
Yeah, just figure out how you're going to deal with it.
Yeah, so it's gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
And now next month we're still trying to figure out next month. First Tuesday falls on July 4th, which is the U.S. holiday here.
Yeah, so we're going to either pre-record it or we're going to
We'll
take the month off.
Take a month off.
We'll do one or the other, and then
But August is definitely going to be that awesome copyright one. So come back in on that.
Yeah, and it's not just a lawyer that knows about copyright. He actually registers artwork with the U.S. Patent and Copyright Office.
Yeah.
So he actually, he's actually a go-to guy for artists. He works directly with artists to make sure that their artwork is correctly registered. And just one of the things, just talking to him that I learned, well, kind of knew it, but he just reinforced it, is a lot of artists take a very I'll just put something, they really don't go through the effort of protecting their work, assuming that it is copyright protected. And yes, it is, but it isn't. And he'll explain why.
Yeah.
So,
so come in and see us for sure in August. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thank y'all so much. And we will end the broadcast here.
All right. Good night, Caldrick.
All right. I'll see you guys.
See ya.
Tomorrow.
Bye.